Oh, pretty heavy, pretty heavy. We're here at MSI for CES 2026 and look at what I have found. Every time I'm at CES, I always get tempted, well, very tempted, to pick up every single graphics card that I see. And we're going to be doing that once again with MSI's Lightning series, which all started back with the 260 GTX. Now, this is a card from, as it says on the thing here, 2009. And this is a beefy GPU. Like, it looks small, but it is surprisingly heavy because it's got the metal shroud on the front, it's got all of this cooling inside. This is quite a premium GPU. This is also the first twin Frozer design from MSI. So while this looks like a fairly standard layout for a card, in fact, two fans these days, that's like an entry-level GPU. This was one of the first graphics cards of its time to use that configuration. And then it went into the 275 GTX Lightning, the second generation. So this was also from 2009, slightly different design, but obviously being a higher tier model. Again, quite beefy with that nice curved metal out exterior. Then we got into the 480 GTX Lightning, the second generation of NVIDIA GPUs. And as you can see here, it's got nice red highlights, but it's still quite a large GPU, 3 power connectors on the top there. And this was back in the day when all GPUs came with dual DVI connectors. So I remember rocking back in the day my dual DVI monitors, great setup. This would have been very early in the DisplayPort era as well. Yeah, this is the first GPU I see with DisplayPort. They replaced the VGA port on these cards with DisplayPort on this one. So very nice. But there's a couple more cards we have to check out. So let's go around and have a look at that. So next up, MSI made the 580 GTX Lightning. They replaced the red highlights with blue on this particular model. And again, we're still seeing the use of the DVI connectors. It's got this nice black finish, but it's still very premium, very heavy. And remember the days when they used to make high-end GPUs just dual slot? These days they're like 3, 4 slots. Anyway, pretty crazy. Exposed heat pipe on the top there, very, very premium. And then next up, this is when they moved to what I would describe as MSI's maybe signature Lightning design. They've gone with the yellow highlights for the 680 GTX or GTX 680 back in the day. Twin Frozer design still, nice metal backplate and metal front plate. Again, metal backplates were quite rare in these eras. Most GPUs didn't really come with too much of a backplate, especially if you're buying more entry to mainstream models. Now they're sort of a common thing, and I see there's this big MSI thing on the back there, so might have to stack that one this way. And then they moved into the 780 Lightning. This is, I would say, probably the first time we're starting to see the more modern GPU styling and design, where they've got the triple fans on the front there. They've also got this quite nice looking yellow fan. Now, I've been told that all of these models that I'm holding at the moment are fully functional and fully working. So MSI employees are standing around looking a bit nervous at me holding all of them at once. But we're going to get into the more recent GPUs in just a moment. So let's go around here. Oh, pretty heavy, pretty heavy. Let's keep going, let's keep going. All right. This is the 980 Ti Lightning from 2015. Again, we've still got the triple Frozer. I think they're calling this the Tri-Frozer design at the time. Nice yellow highlights. And yeah, we're starting to now exceed the dual slot style. So even though it's not quite your triple slot thing, we started to get those coolers that exceeded the dual slots. We do have more modern connectors on this one. So we've got the 3 display ports and 1 HDMI, but still DVI back in this day. So even though it's not that old, we're talking about a decade old with this particular model, we're starting to see some of those more connectors. And remember back in the day when we got SLI, so you could hook up 2 GPUs, you had to put a little bridge on the top there. A lot of these models, if we look back, would have had these sorts of SLI connectors that enabled you to hook up multiple Lightning models if you were super rich and wanted that in your system. Then we got, it would have been this one, the 1080 Ti Lightning Z model, or Lightning Z model if you're in Australia. This is the first one that I've seen here which does not use the yellow styling. So MSI was still interested in using, Lightning as their flagship GPU brand, but decided not to deploy yellow for the 1080 Ti version. This is a super beefy GPU. Again, massive triple, well, we're probably almost a triple slot on that model. And then we move to, prior to today, oh geez, these are heavy. Prior to today, this was the flagship model in the Lightning series, the 2080 Ti Lightning. And this is when MSI deployed gold highlights for this particular GPU. So as you can see there, it's super thick, super heavy. They've deployed the full triple slot little bracket on the front there. No DVI connectors anymore, thankfully. We've moved fully into the DisplayPort and HDMI era. We've got the triple connectors on there. This is a super powerful GPU, and I think they've got a little LCD display. Is that right? There was a little LCD display. You could show some stats and stuff on there, so that's pretty cool. But Lightning is back. After 7 years, they're bringing back this series with a new model, the 5090 Lightning. So let's go take a look at that model.
Thanks to MSI for sponsoring our CES coverage. Check out MSI's range of Z890 and B860 motherboards built for performance with robust VRM designs that are cooled by massive heatsinks. There's more than enough power delivery to fully support the latest Core Ultra desktop processors from Intel. Also enjoy ultra-fast networking, Wi-Fi 7 and at least 5 gigabit wired LAN. There's also support for PCIe Gen 5 along with MSI's screwless M.2 Shield Frozer for quick and easy installation of storage. Learn more about MSI's range of Z890 and B860 motherboards via the links in the description.
Also supporting our CES coverage is Thermal Grizzly and their Cryo Sheet, an excellent alternative to thermal pastes, and because they don't use any liquid, they can never dry out. These graphene thermal pads offer very high thermal conductivity, are easy to use, are extremely durable, and can be used to maximize your CPU and/or GPU's cooling performance. So for more information, please check the links in the video description. We'd also like to thank Endorphy, creators of the award-winning Fluctus fans, available in both 120 and 140 millimeters. These high-performance fans are designed to move air efficiently in dense spaces with focused airflow and reduced noise. Perfect for CPU, power supplies, PC cases, and more. So to learn more, please click the links in the video description.
And now we get to the most recent model, and the model that I'm the most excited to hold for the first time. We've got the GeForce RTX 5090 Lightning Z model from MSI. And I've been specifically told it's Z and not Z, so there you go. That's an important caveat for this video. So let's hold this Let's hold that for the first time. This is a seriously beefy GPU, especially when I'm trying to hold it awkwardly like that. This is MSI's flagship model, the fastest, and what I've been told, the guaranteed most cool and quiet GPU. I've been explicitly guaranteed that when Steve tests this model, that it will come in the top of the charts for both cooling and also noise. And that is despite coming out of the box with an 800 watt profile, which I believe is called an overclock profile. Standard. There's another overclock profile that will take you up to 1,000 watts, which is of course well above the 575 watts that the 5090 comes with by default. That's from the NVIDIA Founders Edition model and all that sort of thing. So it comes with a full copper cold plate, which covers all the VRMs and MOSFETs, along with of course the GPU die and all the memory. So it's one of the largest that you can get on a GPU at the moment. I'm told it has a massive 40 phase VRM, and that's not a mistake. 40 phase VRM. The previous record holder was 31 phases. At least that's what MSI tells me. So they've put it up to 40 because of course, if you're going to be running it at 1,000 watts, you need tons of VRMs. But 1,000 watts is actually not the limit. There is a secret higher limit. So basically, if you decide, I want to become a nice extreme overclocker, I want to put in all the effort, all the hours to improve my skills and become an extreme overclocker, then you go to MSI and you like, give me the extreme overclocking BIOS, and then you sign an NDA under the threat of, I don't know, being chased out of town and sued and all that sort of thing. They will give you an extreme overclocking BIOS that will raise the Lightning Z's total power output, or power limit to 2,500 watts, which should make this the best GPU for overclocking. I believe they've already set something like 17 world records overclocking this particular model, which is insane. And there's going to be more to come, I assume, because people are just starting to get their hands on this. Now, it's a limited edition model, so there'll be only 1,300 of these made. I believe we're looking at model number 4 right here. Over there, we're seeing model number 1 and 2. So yeah, up to 1,300 of these are being made. It's also got on the front here an 8-inch LCD at 1080p. This allows you to view all of your PC stats. So especially if you mount it vertically in your case, you'll be able to see everything nice at the front in your window. I think we'll show some B-roll of that a bit later. They decided not to use an OLED for this particular model because, of course, as a display tester, I'm always after, why did you choose LCD over OLED? OLED screen's too hot in this size. So they wanted to optimize this for cooling, of course. So using the OLED on the front there just introduced a bit too much heat. The LCD is a better solution for that. You'll see the 360mm radiator here as well. They're using liquid crystal polymer fans. This is MSI's best fan technology. So that allows for, the coolest and quietest operation when everything goes through the pipes, the liquid and all that sort of stuff. In the box, which we will show, it's an insane box, super high build quality. They will also be providing a very good quality PCI 5.0 riser cable, a vertical bracket, so if your case doesn't offer that, you'll be able to add one in via MSI's included bracket. And they also have a BIOS change tool, which is interesting because on the back, this is such a large card that the actual physical switch to change between the standard and the OC profile is kind of buried a little bit in there, might be a little hard to access, so they provide a tool for that in the box as well. One of the things that I found super interesting was actually the software side of the Lightning. So normally I'm not the biggest fan of software utilities. If you're going to ask me to install a utility along with my GPU, I'm probably going to say no because they're often pretty crap. MSI have decided to solve this problem by developing a web utility. So you can just fire up your browser and adjust all of the overclocking settings, so all of the clock speeds and frequencies, power targets and everything right from within the browser. There's no need to install a separate application, plug up your system with bloatware and all that sort of thing. You can just fire up the web browser and access everything through there, which I believe is going to be one of the new features with the Lightning model. So this is, it is seriously, seriously heavy. I'm going to give a much better attempt at trying to lift this thing up. But it is an absolutely massive graphics card. And that is despite looking quite small. Like, we're not talking about a super long GPU that's using up tons and tons of slots this way, but it is dense. And of course, it requires 2 power connectors at the top there, which again, we'll probably get some nice B-roll of. So yeah, one of the most impressive RTX 5090s that I have seen, probably the most impressive actually. Now, we don't have pricing or release date for this model just yet, so if you're thinking about what it's going to cost, get prepared because it is going to be expensive, but it shouldn't be too far until it's released, so we're expecting this relatively soon. February. I've actually been told a specific month, February. This is all specifically binned 5090s, a partnership with NVIDIA, of course, to allow those super high power targets and everything like that, so yeah, really keen to check that out. Well, I probably won't be sent one. I'm sure Steve will be sent one, so he'll be able to get all the nice checking out experience. So yeah, stay tuned for that. MSI has a new motherboard series for 2026, which they are calling Max. Well, we've seen Max motherboards from MSI before, so they're reintroducing that for the B850 and X870 series. The main change with the Max motherboards is the introduction of a 64MB BIOS. So of course, we're expecting Zen 6 CPUs at some point pretty soon, and so MSI are just increasing the capacity of the BIOS so that they can support those CPUs without having to delete support for older CPUs. We've seen that previously with the Max motherboards. I think it was in like the B450 era, around that time. So they went from like 16 to 32. They're doing the same thing now with 32 to 64. So that will be available across all Max motherboards. They're also introducing a BCLK timer. So that's an overclocking feature for people if they want to use it, more flexibility. And that will be available again across all of the Max motherboards, even all the way down to some of the more mainstream models that we're in front of here, like we've got the Tomahawk and Mortar, as well as the Gaming Plus. All of them will come with the BCLK timer. Now, despite the fact that these are going to be replacing the old models in the market, so if you wanted a Tomahawk, for example, in 2026, MSI will offer you a Tomahawk Max, they will be released at the same price. So no increase in MSRP for those features, exactly the same price across the lineup, which is super cool to hear in a world where component prices are increasing, especially for things like DDR5 and SSDs. A new model for this year, though, is the Unify X. So there has been a Unify previously, as far as I'm aware, for the X870 series, but no Unify X model. So that will be available in February with an 18+2+1 VRM design. It will be the first Unify X on AM5, and it will also have support for DDR5 10200 memory. That's right, DDR5 10200, which is potentially unobtainium in the current market, but I am told that it should work with AM5 CPUs if you decide to buy that motherboard. It comes with 5 M.2 slots. That's a great feature for me. I'm always after the M.2 slots because I tend to fill them in all the systems I build, especially for productivity and that sort of thing, and a tuning controller. So it is an overclocking design motherboard. It comes with this, it's almost like a remote control, but it's plugged in via a wire to your system and allows you to adjust some of the OC things without having to boot up into Windows to adjust them. So that's kind of a neat feature. So yeah, those are the main motherboard features that we're seeing. Steve, I believe, is planning a big X870 motherboard roundup that will include all of these boards, along with boards from other brands as well. So you'll be seeing that sometime in the next couple of months. But all of these, of course, will be tested on Hardware Unboxed. So I've already held a bunch of components at MSI's booth for CES, and I thought, I'm just gonna rest my arms. But then Balin, who's our camera guy, he was like, no, you've gotta hold the power supply for this segment. And I'm telling you, this is a beefy and heavy power supply, so we'll see how I go on that one. But basically what we're looking at here are MSI's new MPG, and also I don't think they have the MAG here as well, but there will be an MAG model coming out. So this is the AI TS series. And the reason why I want to look at that in this video is that, there's this kind of melting power connector issue that we're seeing with the 16-pin connector on modern GPUs. So still seems to be an ongoing issue. So MSI have decided to, I guess what I would call, deploy a second generation solution to this. So I think previously at Computex, maybe it was last year or the year before that, we saw the colored power connector. So that just tells you if your GPU is fully connected, because that people thought that that was one of the main issues previously, that people weren't plugging in the power supply the whole way. This generation, they're including something which is called Safeguard Plus, at least Safeguard Plus on the MPG model and Safeguard on the MAG model, which monitors the current coming out of the 16-pin power cables and gives you all sorts of alerts and special functionality so that you can monitor that and make sure that your GPU power cable is not going to explode or burn up over time. So on the MPG models, you get both an audible alarm if they detect any sort of anomalies on the 16-pin cables, but also it can record and log the current that's going in at all times. So if there is a problem, you can check the logs, you can see exactly the time at which something has gone wrong and potentially send that off to companies for warranty purposes. But also you can just use their software utility to monitor all the various different things. I was also told that if there is a problem, the GPU power will be cut after 3 minutes. So if they detect particularly high current on, let's say, one of the wires, and that persists over the course of 3 minutes, to prevent the entire cable from just melting in your system, the power to the GPU will just shut off. Now that will probably cause your PC to crash and reset, but that is better than having your entire GPU melt and you have to send off to an RMA. The MAG models will also be available. That comes with Safeguard, which is just the audible alarm. You don't get the monitoring features, but they still are improving the monitoring for people when you buy the MAG model. So the MPG 1600 watt and 1300 watts. 1600 watts is kind of designed for that new Lightning GPU we saw earlier, and then the MAG 1200 and 1000 watts. So these will be available pretty soon, Q1 for MPG and Q2 for the rest of the models. So yeah, we're keen to check those out a bit later, maybe use them in some systems, especially if Steve ends up testing that Lightning model, which I'm sure he will be. So we're over here looking at MSI's SSDs for a couple of reasons. Firstly, just to look at the new models, but secondly, to tell you a bit of a story. But first, let's get into the new models. So here we have the Spatium M571 DLP. So this is the first consumer SSD with data loss protection in the firmware. So the idea here is that if there's a sudden power outage, there is the potential for data loss if things are being, say, written to the NAND at the exact moment that power loss occurs. So with data loss protection, instead of just shutting off power to the SSD, the firmware will ramp down the power over time to allow those final writes and things to occur before fully shutting off. So theoretically, in the case of power loss, you won't be losing data corrupting your SSD, which is great for people who really have issues with data loss, something that is close to home at the moment. So this will be available in up to a 4 terabyte capacity. It also uses the new Phison E28 controller, which has 50% lower power consumption than the previous Phison controller. So this is a PCI 5.0 M.2 SSD, so these are a little difficult to cool at times. They are high on the power consumption. So, you might have seen those pretty crazy SSD coolers at times, things with fans and big heat sinks. With the new controller, that won't be as required, though you're probably still recommended to use something like that. This will be available in Q2. We don't have current pricing for it because SSDs, they are getting a little expensive, so I think I've become a very rich man by holding this and maybe stealing it for later. So yeah, that is the M571 DLP. Now, what else MSI has here is the second generation version of the Data Mag. So this is twice as fast as the previous version, up to 4 gigabytes per second read speeds, 3.6 gigabytes per second write speeds. It is also MagSafe, so if you happen to have an iPhone, you can just slap it on the back, but I'm using a Samsung, so they will provide you stickers if you want to magnetize it to your phone that way. Also a great thing for cameras to record your stuff to. So let me tell you the story about why this is quite an interesting and relevant product for us here at CES. So yesterday we came to the MSI booth to let's be honest, film this segment for the first time. And then we went back to our hotel room and we thought, nice, we'll just start to edit this video. We plugged in the CF Express card that we were using in our camera right into the PC. PC decided to crash blue screen. We were like, that's a bit weird. And then we couldn't get the card to work from that point forward. It turns out that we had blown up the CF Express card. It is fully dead, it is cooked, no longer works. So MSI has come in clutch and provided us with one of these. Well, the first generation version, because this actually isn't out yet, but they have given us the first generation version of this, and that is being used with our camera right now. So fingers crossed you'll be seeing this version of this video, because it'll actually save and we'll actually be able to edit it when we get back to our hotel room. But thanks to MSI for providing us that SSD, because it has come in clutch here. So yeah, fingers crossed we'll have no issues from here using this, but I'm pretty sure that it'll be fine. So we'll get to that later. But anyway, a few more products to look at, so let's get to that. At CES 2026, MSI are introducing a new series of products that sits among their current tiers. So they've obviously got the MEG at the top, MPG and MAG. Well, now they're also introducing Pro Max. So a couple of years ago, MSI used to produce creator products. They were just branded as creator. They were designed for creators. And they're bringing that back with Pro Max in 2026. So the idea here with these products is, well, first of all, to omit RGB lighting. And I'm super stoked about that, because I do not want RGB lighting in my necessary, well, it's okay in my gaming system, but in my workstation, it's not really necessary. And that's the whole point of Pro Max. These are meant for creators, people that are doing work, and you don't necessarily want your nice rainbow fired up PC, distracting you while you're trying to do video editing and stuff like that. Balin is currently very upset at me because he edits as well and he loves the RGB in his editing system, but I'm the opposite and I feel like I'm right. So basically with Pro Max, well, first of all, like I said, they're removing and simplifying the design to remove RGB, remove those distractions, but you do get some benefits. These are designed to have the most connectivity. Well, maybe not as much as some of MSI's, say, premium high-end like motherboards and stuff like that, but certainly very good connectivity for what is supposed to be a mainstream / premium sort of price segment. So plenty of connectivity for creators, and across all of the products that we're seeing here, the goal is to have a unified design. So you can have your Pro Max motherboard, you can have your power supply, you can have your cooler, and in the case here we can see there's graphics cards as well. You put them all together and it has this unified design language across all the products, and they're all white. So if you want to put together a white build, that will be possible with Pro Max. So some of the products that are available, we've got the Pro Max X870E-A Wi-Fi, so that's the motherboard option. There's the Pro Max 1000PL power supply. They've got the Pro Max M15 360mm all-in-one liquid cooler, which does have this really nice block on it that I think looks quite good. We're starting to see some pretty crazy designs for those things, but this is a bit more understated, but still has the LCD on the front so that you can monitor stats and things like that. And then we get things like the GeForce graphics card and also the Pro Max 030 case. So if you do want to put together a system, you can build it to look like this. I think MSI is also going to be offering some pre-built options that use these Pro Max components as well. So that is going to be possible. But yeah, essentially a new mainstream to premium sort of pricing segment for all of the Pro Max stuff, and with a creative focus. So yeah, pretty keen on checking those out, pretty keen on seeing those. And I'm sure the motherboard at the very least will be part of Steve's upcoming motherboard roundup that we discussed earlier. Oh, well, I am legitimately tired after holding all of those graphics cards, and then Balin made me hold a PSU after that, and then, yeah, as I said, this is kind of the second time that we're filming this video as well, so super tired after doing all of that, but yeah, it's been really cool to see all of MSI's products here at CES as far as the desktop side of things. Now, we will have a monitors video coming up soon as well on Monitors Unboxed. If you're keen on checking out all of the monitors, go over and check out that video. But yeah, that Lightning GPU is super impressive. It doesn't look like it's particularly heavy, but when you pick it up, it is seriously heavy. So you're going to need to reinforce your case to put that into your system. So yeah, I'm sure Steve will be checking that out soon, as well as some of the motherboards and things like that. So there'll be plenty more MSI coverage on Hardware Unboxed with some of these products in the coming days. So yeah, that'll do it for MSI's desktop stuff here at CES 2026. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.